Hi everybody, it's Andy here, and as you can see, I've got Chris Dowty with me again. Hi, Chris.
Hey Andy, good to see you.
Now, last time we was talking about compliance, and if you're going to be like a property sourcer, or if you're doing property projects, what sort of things you need as compliance and that sort of thing. That's what we were talking about last time. I want to sort of go from the other angle now. If you're a property investor that's looking for deals, whether in your area or outside your area, how do you know if the person you're buying those deals off is a good sourcer?
Well, I can definitely say it's not because somebody told you they were. Yeah. And when I say told you they were, you as an investor are responsible for your own business. And I think with anything, with your own money particularly, what we've seen over the years is many people, unfortunately, I think from a human perspective, want to what's the word, believe that everybody is hopefully the same as they are. you know they operate in the same ethical manner, etc., but the reality is unfortunately no. And that's why, for example, in various industries we have regulatory bodies who look after consumers, making sure that they don't get the wool pulled over their eyes. But ultimately these bodies are there just as a sort of a framework. At the end of the day, whether you like it or not, the investor, the person with the money, the person who that you're dealing with, you're responsible. You are responsible ultimately for who you engage with, because there's thousands, hundreds of thousands of people out there. Even if you relate it to getting a new kitchen done. How are you going to find a good kitchen fitter? Do you go and talk to a mate who just had one done, and you can go and see the evidence for yourself, so it's kind of been verified through that sort of way. Yeah, that's always good. But I would also always say is, if you do get introduced to somebody like that, okay, well, can I have a couple of clients that I can speak to who are not related and stuff like that, and see if it corroborates, what I mean, across it. So when we start talking about investors who are now trying to find properties themselves, I would turn around and say, well, don't just do it yourself. You're only one person. Use more eyes. But then the question is what eyes and what people do you use? Because, I think in this day and age, a good website and a nice PDF brochure doesn't mean they're good. Yes, from an operational perspective. So I think the answer is multiple things that we can do, Andy. And one of the things is very much, from a regulator, we've just been talking about regulation and compliance, is making sure that if you find an individual, yes, personal recommendations are great. Using networks like PIN, and see how long they've been operating for and how many people have used them within the organization. That in itself is hopefully a good verification tool. But even when they do, then you need to be asking them, well, what are they like for yourself? All right, could you send me over all of your compliance, please, and your regulatory certificates, please, to make sure that, again, if they're expired or they're not, then you kind of know a little bit of an indication of how these guys operate under the hood. Because that's the key. Once you're in bed with somebody, you don't know what it's like, under the sheets, and you want to be making sure, in that analogy, that you've what's the word, mitigated as much risk as possible. Because these guys are finding you things, they are taking your money and holding it in. You want to make sure that they operate at a level, their response times, how quickly do they come back to you, and stuff like that. These are all indicators of whether these people in business, whether they're a sourcer, whether they're an agent, in whatever regard, do they respond quickly? Are they professional? These are indicators.
Just to reiterate this, there's a very typical human reaction when you're going into this. If you're someone who's got some cash and wants to invest in a property, and that could be a sourced property where you're going to take it on,
Yep.
or it could be a project that you're looking at. The human nature thing is to trust, isn't it? I mean, it's the gut feeling is, well, they seem like they're okay, or you've heard that they're very good at what they do. The thing that we've got to really sort of push in here is that this is business. It's not personal.
Yes.
And if you're an investor looking at a property source, or an investor looking at a property business that's doing project work,
Yes.
or land deals, whatever it is, the key thing is to do not just your due diligence, but to ask them some specific things that will give you uh, uh, the confidence,
Indications.
yeah,
Indications of what they
that
operate.
you're actually going to go into this and they have things covered. If things go wrong, they have things covered, isn't
Yeah.
it? That's the whole point of this. But we have this human trait of, oh, they're probably all right, and you go into this with a blindfold on. And what we're
Correct.
saying here is you should not do that. If you're putting money into a project, if you're sourcing property from a company,
Yep.
then they need to have the right credentials. They need to have the right regulations going, and you make sure that they're exactly who they say they are, because there's a lot of people who don't do that, and you really want to be protected. And this is simple as that: due diligence.
And just to highlight, it's protected from yourself, as in, blindly trusting or whatever it may be. You need protection from yourself, because it's great when there's nothing on the line and everything's going good and what have you. Great, but it's when it goes wrong. And I can tell you from experience in myself doing projects with builders, with lawyers, with all of these people who at the time seemed like great eggs and all the rest of it. It's when it's going wrong, and it will. It will. Every single property deal will go wrong. Now, the level of how it will go wrong, like to the extent, will vary. So this is not scaremongery. This is just the fact that something will go wrong. It could be as minor as the kitchen's going to be delivered 2 weeks late.
Minor hiccups, but
Right?
it has implications, doesn't it?
Correct. Or it could be to the extent of, I've seen, and when I say seen, we have observed where people have sent over 100,000, I think it was 115,000 without a contract, without anything apart from the request from a turnkey sourcer, and that money's just gone. I mean, people go, oh, I wouldn't do that. We see regularly out there money that is sent in the tens of thousands. Does that make sense? For stage payments, without so much as a sign off from the previous stage, without so much as even getting boots on the ground that goes and sees it. And people are just paying money because they think that, oh, yeah, can I have this money, please? Yeah, okay, fine. And that inherent, and this is the problem. People think, oh,
So
I would.
what's the key things that people have to look for?
For me, it's for example, if you're working, it's lots of indications of working with any human being. If you're able to, one of the between humans is go and eyeball them. You know what I mean? Eyeball them, see how they behave. Does that make sense in front of you and all that kind of stuff? That's one indication. But then all of the other indications are with regard to do they have all of their compliance in place? Let's talk about that. Just as basics, right? All of their certifications. Do you have these? Can you send them over?
Insurance.
Insurance. I
Yeah.
want to see your insurance policy. Yeah. So if it goes wrong and you're at fault and I come for you, does that make sense? Are you covered? Does that make sense? These are real simple basics. Then, for example, look at, if you're engaging with them, they should be sending you a client KYC form, know your client form. So you would fill it out, who you are, They're doing that in order to have that as part of their onboarding process, which is part of the regulation that is needed for them to know who you are. Yeah. So if they're not doing that properly, or they're just doing it by email, or they always, for example, want to do stuff on WhatsApp and it doesn't want to be in black and white on email. So you can use that in a court of law because WhatsApp you can't. These little things, indications, does that make sense? Just at the very start of engaging, building projects, how long have you, dealt with your builder? Can you send me over, a couple of clients who, the builder's dealt with so I can have a conversation with them? It's not perfect, but at the same time, these are all little things and indications. Does that make sense? Which, let's be honest, what takes, I don't know, probably a total of 3-4 hours in total. If you're about to get into a deal and pay something that's 100 grand and a 20 grand, what's 4 hours? You know what I mean? It's not going to completely mitigate everything because you don't know when you're actually operating. But these are indications at the very start who you're dealing with. Are they professional? Do they care? And that is something that unfortunately most people do not. And therefore you need what I would call these, steps in place. 3-4 hours. It's worth it. It's absolutely worth it.
Now, you got one of your clients. You got a site from one of your clients Let me just run this up on screen because
Yeah,
I think it's
so
important.
for example, what we do is, say we've got 65 agents across the country, and one of the things that we want to do is take that burden out. It's not, again, completely foolproof, but what we do, two things. This, for example, is Pavan. He's a great sourcer who works with us. Right here, we are displaying publicly, because we verified him, everything about his business. Is he compliant? When does it run out? Has he got all of his AML procedures and stuff in place? Yes, he does. What services does he provide? He provides lettings agents service and building team. What's his response times? What's his average price of this is transparency. Everybody who doesn't want to be transparent, does that make sense? Red flags go off.
Yeah.
And for me, anything that they don't want to be transparent. And from this perspective, this is not only about him, about his business. We've, as I say, had a look, make sure if he's got the effort and time to put this and throw that out there, that says a lot of good things for me. And obviously, we're able to oversee who these people are. Here are his properties, for example. You're able to contact him. And the next stage, which is nothing to do with the early stages, the actual day-to-day and going through the deal and working through, we have a conversational area, which is all transparent. And legal contracts are also signed behind the scenes. So again, this is why the agents love it, because they want to protect themselves from rogue investors or tire kickers, make sure that they're transparent as well, and vice versa. The investors can actually talk with these guys, knowing that there is a overwatch. Does that make sense? Of what is going on. That is transparency. This is where, at the end of the day, if I ever smell anybody who is not transparent in that way, they're hiding something. And normally that is not going to end in good news. So, as I say, it's something that we're very passionate about. And I think there's always steps that you can take. You are ultimately responsible. If you click a button on our system to send money, that is on you. Does that make sense? But we will put things in place that make you say, are you sure? Yes. Have you done this? Have you done this? So again, ultimate responsibility is with the investor. But at the same time, there are lots of things that you can use, which is including verified sourcing agents on our platform and the system itself, which allows you to operate in a very transparent nature with the other party. And that is simply what it's all about, transparency.
Yeah, and just being as professional as you possibly can be. So can people get in touch with you regarding that? If they're an investor looking for, compliant sources, deal makers and that sort of thing, can they get in touch with you about that?
Absolutely. So any sourcing agents out there, any investors who need compliance, please get in touch with us. This was on the previous conversation that we had. So please come to www.sourcinginvestments.co.uk. You can come into the investor area, come in and have a login, register login. It's free. You can see all of the agents that we have are qualified and verified. Likewise, if you are an agent and you want to gain access to verified investors, again, please come to sourcinginvestments.co.uk/agents. You'll put those, I'm sure, in below, Andy, and just come and see, please. Both of you, all of you. It's a full CRM system for both investors and sources, line of sight to opportunities that you wouldn't be able to replicate yourself. And you know what? You might find something if you're an investor. And you know what? You've got something that allows you to be in control from wherever you are in the world to deal with people on the ground to acquire UK property.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. I think that's a good point to stop. We'll put all the links in below the video here, and so and just go and have a look at that. If you've got any questions at all, because a lot of these sort of things do raise up quite a lot of questions. Chris is in the group and he will answer your questions as they come through. Well, I say as they come through. You might be out doing something at a time, but you will answer the questions as you see them. But yeah, just put your questions in, because if we don't know what your questions are, we can't answer them. So it's very, very simple. Get involved in these videos, because we can help you along your property journey if we know what your questions are. So put your questions in the comments, and until next time, we'll see you all next time, and we'll see Chris next time as well.
Sounds good.